running late, so he will be here in a little while, so we will catch up with him later. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let's see here. So today is January 9th, 2018, Public Safety Committee. I am Councilmember Juan Villegas, co-chair from last year. So I'm going to go ahead and direct the meeting. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to skip items 1, electing the chair and the vice chair until Councilmember Tinajero arrives. And we're going to start the meeting off with the public comments. So if I can have Mr. Ed Marashi step forward to the microphone.
Hi, Ed Marashi, 2139 North Flower Street, president of Floral Park Neighborhood Association. Just 2 comments. One is we had our Comlink board meeting last night, and one of the members brought up an idea that I wanted to pass on to you guys, especially since you're going to be talking about the marijuana laws, and that is to create a map that will show all the legal dispensaries on the front side, and then on the back side, what are some of the conditions and rules and regulations. That way, if a neighborhood wanted to know about it and put down some fears, like, oh God, they're in my neighborhood or something, they could show, no, they're all here in the commercial areas, and these are some of the enforcement things you could follow up. Just an idea. The other thing is, I just wanted to spotlight 2 things that I see a lot in next door. One is strange people wandering the neighborhoods at night, and they're looking for bikes and other things to steal. That's one thing we see. But the one I really wanted to comment about tonight is coyotes. We have a lot of coyotes, especially in the north part here in Santa Ana. I see at least every other day a comment, hey, this coyote's following me up the street, be careful, and other things like that. And to highlight it, one of my favorite pictures is Phil Schaefer, who's a realtor that probably a lot of you know. His neighbor came out and saw a coyote standing on the peak of his roof, looking down, surveying the whole neighborhood and the street. So that shows you what a problem we really do have right now with coyotes. And I wish that the city could come up with some guidelines or suggestions or think about it, because it is becoming a safety issue. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marashi. Can I have Esther Fonseca step up to the microphone?
Excuse me. Yes, good evening. I am a member of the Board of Directors for Dice Pilar Neighborhood Association. I would like to address the continuing problems with the policy and enforcement procedures currently in place at Santa Ana Police Department regarding the enforcement of Municipal Code Section 10-153 regarding loud music and noise. The way this works is you have a loud party, loud noise, loud music, officers respond, they warn the people, but the officers apparently are not taking the name of the person in charge of the party. But it doesn't really matter, because overall what I've noticed in 18 years of living in my neighborhood, the officers do not really issue citations on these calls. This is a very ineffective, colossal waste of time, because the officers are having to respond 2 to 3 times at the same address at one night. People don't care because they're not being cited, and so they don't care. There's no consequences, no citations are issuing. I would like to ask the members of the council here present first of all, if you think this is the best use of taxpayer money, the way the municipal code is being enforced by the department. Also, if you think this is the best use of the limited police department resources, where officers are repeatedly responding to the same address with no ensuing consequences. And also, is the city council comfortable with these policies, or is this something that needs to be changed? I would respectfully ask that this committee request that the police department examine their policy and enforcement, report back to this committee, and report back to this committee their findings. Finally, I welcome the opportunity to work directly with Santa Ana Police Department staff on this issue as part of an advisory committee to address this issue that continues to plague this city as a whole. This is, again, everybody knows that this is something that most of the calls that go out on the weekend are these types of calls. And we're told repeatedly that these are low priority calls. But what happens in effect is that, thank you. Yes. What happens in effect is that the reason it's a colossal waste of time and resources, limited resources that we have, is because the officers are responding. They are going to these calls, again, 2 and 3 times a night. I can give you horror stories over 19 years that are so ridiculous. It's outrageous. My backdoor neighbor, that happened again on New Year's Eve. Same thing. You call once, the officers responds, and on the call log, it says PAWC, party advised, will comply. No names taken down, no information taken down. 45 minutes later, you've got to call back in again because the music has started up again. Another officer, change of shift, he comes in, same thing, PAWC on the log. We have no information on who to cite. But as I said before, in the 18 years when I followed up on these calls by calling dispatch, no citation is issued. It just, warning was issued. So in Santa Ana Police Department, people even taunt you. When you go out, tell them, please put your music down, like happened in New Year's Eve. They literally look at you and say, go ahead, lady, call the police. When they come, we'll put the music down. But then what happens is, 45 minutes later, they put it back up again. It's a joke, and it continues because this is...
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Peter Katz, step up to the microphone, please.
Good evening, everyone. I addressed this issue last night at the TAC committee, and I want to bring it up before this committee. As you know, we got a lot of publicity over the 48 hours over the New Year's weekend. We were the only city in California that had their marijuana shops up, open and running for business. And as a result, every 15 minutes, there was a reporter outside the 420 Club on the national news promoting Santa Ana as the only city that had their act together. So there is a problem in the marijuana industry, as you know, and I'm making a proposal here how to deal with this problem with cash sales. They have no place to take it to the bank. And the city of Los Angeles, the city of Oakland, the city of San Francisco are already exploring resolutions to deal with this. But there is a guideline here. The Bank of North Dakota was established in 1919. If we establish our own bank that's outside the federal regulation to deposit the industry, like Colorado has done in Pueblo, Colorado, the Pueblo Credit Union is already in 1 year drawn in $20 million in deposits because they are outside the system. So this is the first line of the resolution that was adopted by the Los Angeles City Council. The nation's only public bank, the Bank of North Dakota, was created in 1919 in a populist wave when farmers there were unhappy with decisions being made by major banks heavily influenced by railroads and out-of-state agricultural interests. Its mission is to promote agriculture, commerce, and industry in that state. Furthermore, over the last 80 years, the Bank of North Dakota has provided a variety of financial products to the residents and governments of North Dakota, including low-interest student loans, home loans, college savings accounts, scholarships, school construction loans, affordable housing construction and rehabilitation loans, and public construction financing at lower interest rates. So I just think that this is a way we should be on the cutting edge again and start exploring ways to establish a local bank that's owned and operated by the city of Santa Ana that can deal with the problems that we have on affordable housing, construction loans, home loans, and a way for the marijuana industry to deposit their money in a safe way. So I think it's worth exploring and that the city should be on the cutting edge of this and take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank all members of the public who came out and spoke. And we're going to take things out of order until Councilmember Tinajero arrives. So we're going to start with item number 4, approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion for approval of the minutes from the November 14th meeting?
I'll move the item.
I'll second it. So we're going to go ahead and pass that. Going to move on to item number 6 on the shot spotter update from the chief. Do we have any comment or any update on that, sir?
Yes, thank you. At our last public safety committee meeting, we had a staff presentation by Commander Gominski on shot spotter, what the service really entails. And then we also had some public comment from some representatives from shot spotters, as you recall. Since then, I did invite those and other representatives from shot spotter to come to the Santa Ana Police Department. They provided a presentation of their service. I had all the deputy chiefs, other senior command staff in the room, dialogue, asking questions. So the service that they provide is essentially mapping of where shots are occurring. That's pretty clear. And so it will assist, it may assist in directing us, but it does not solve the crimes behind the shots being fired, right? And so collectively, in hearing from the group being the police command staff, at this time, based on the resources that we have, the recommendation is that we not pursue at this time. There is a cost factor. Initially, when this was proposed, some over the last couple of years, it was in the millions in cost. They've recalibrated their service, and now it's in the area of, as I understand it, a few $100,000 for really a pilot for a small geographical area. So not only in addition to the lack of the funding, but really what the current vacancy rate, I think we'd be prudent to address that and then maybe look at this for the future.
Thank you very much for the update. Any questions from council members?
Yes, thank you. So I do have a couple of questions. I imagine there are pros and cons. One of the cons, the cost. What are some of the benefits that have been seen maybe in other cities, or we could potentially see in our city if we were to at some point in the near or distant future choose to implement this technology?
Yes, great question. So, I mean, some of the direct benefit is that we do have additional geo mapping of where the shots are occurring. So much so that they even could designate the type of caliber of weapon in some instances, not all. And so that would again assist in directing the additional resources, or maybe the limited resources that we have. Could be the counter recommendation, but again, in hearing, and I had everyone that's in charge of investigations, field operations, everyone that's in charge of the resources that we do have today, and really we feel currently that we're doing what we can with what we have. I think if we had the additional resources that we need, and we're continuing to concentrate on that, and you'll hear from that in a bit. But there is benefit. It's just a matter of kind of the balance test on what we do have today. And then the other piece that I think is absolutely critical is this really a false sense of security, right? So if we have a mapping system and it tells us the shots are being fired here, and if I am responding to incidents citywide based on priority, and I don't have the immediate resources to respond, the expectation from the community could be is, well, why didn't you get here, and why didn't you get here in a prescribed amount of time? My position and what I've read, and I know that it's been successful and expanded actually in the community of Fresno, Oakland, I think Chicago has it as well. There's benefit, but there's a lot of resources that are put behind it as well. So that was the consensus of the group today.
Okay. Thank you for that info. It sounds like this is, although I've served on the Public Safety Committee for some time, and there was a period of time where I wasn't on the committee, and I think it sounds like this was presented. There was to the committee before with more information. So I won't take up more time asking a whole lot of additional questions, although I'd be interested on a separate meeting to learn a little bit more. So I am interested in us looking at. I see that the potential benefits, and I'll give you an example. The neighborhood where I live in, off of Townsend Street on Brayton, Monte Vista. Unfortunately, it's an area that all too often, we have gunfire, and sometimes it's luckily nobody is hit. Every so often we do have tragic incidences, whether it's individuals being struck and sometimes even fatal. For those of us who live in that area, and there are other areas like it throughout the city, other hotspots, frankly, it's just this weekend, my wife and I were home and we heard quite a few. Most often, I can distinguish whether it's a gunshot or not. Every so often, I don't know. And frankly, one of the things that it's been a few years ago, we got new windows, and the good thing about the windows, it blocks out a lot of noise. Downside is I don't really know what's oftentimes what's going on out there. So I'd say sometimes we don't call because we're not too sure. Is it just fireworks? Is it not? And sometimes this weekend I called and then later on I heard a similar sound, which sounded like, oh, maybe it wasn't actually gunfire. And here I went and reported what was, maybe not. Oftentimes, community meetings, the officers will convey that what would help them most is for the community, is information, is intel. Let us know so we can have that information.
Absolutely.
So this, I see this as an opportunity for there to be intel information that's probably more accurate than the human ear to be able to distinguish. So for those reasons, I would say that there would be some value, although it sounds like clearly there's been some assessment, some recommendations here from staff. I would be interested on a separate time again, or learning a little bit more about technology and all. But I would also recommend that we don't completely shelve the idea, because again, from a resident neighbor out there, I could see it, and I don't think for me, my family, I wouldn't necessarily see it I know the neighborhood we live in. I wouldn't necessarily expect that, there's this technology now, violence and gunshots are going to go away. But I would see it as a tool that would be able to, we would still make our phone calls if we need to. We would do all of that. I wouldn't think that the community would see it as though we don't have to participate in the process now and make the calls or have this false sense of security. But again, I would see it as hopefully something that would help in the long run to be able to solve crime and all. So for those reasons, I would just recommend that we still continue to monitor that as a potential technology for us to implement, and I'd be interested in learning more on the side. Thank you for
Absolutely.
what you've done so far.
Thank you, Councilmember Benavides. I don't have any questions for that, so we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 5, which is the update on the police officer recruitment and hiring.
Real quick before we get started, Robert Carroll is here from the police department. He'll have the beginning portion of that presentation, and then Corporal Oscar Lazardi is here as well. I invited him to introduce himself and really share with the committee and the public who's here and listening at home really the priority that we've placed on recruiting and a different approach that we're taking. So I can answer any additional questions or add once they're concluded. So go ahead, Robert.
Great. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide another update on where we're at with the police officer hiring. Just again, in summary, we have 369 police officer, or actually sworn positions budgeted in the general fund. We have 11 police officers budgeted in our special revenue funds, which includes 7 within Civic Center and 4 in the downtown. We have 3 budgeted within our grants, which includes 2 in UASI and 1 in our Pell program, for a total of 383 sworn positions department-wide. Of those, we have 322 filled, with 61 vacancies. Last time I was here to present, I believe we had a few less vacancies, but during the month of December, we had 3 officers and 1 sergeant retire. So that was the bad news. The good news is that number of 4 retirements in the month of December was about half of what we're used to seeing in the month of December. And I think a big part of that has to do with the new POA agreement and officers wanting to stick around a little bit longer. So that was a good month of December for us. Even though we did see a slight dip, it was promising. We currently have 14 recruits in the academy. We have 7 recruits in Class 229, which is due to graduate this month. 3 recruits in Class 230, due to graduate in April. 3 recruits in Class 231, which will graduate in June. and one in Golden West Academy, which will graduate also in June. There are currently 11 trainees in the field training program for a total of 25 officers at various stages of the academy and the FTO program.
Quick question, Pete.
Sure.
So the previous slide showed that of the 322 filled, 15 are police recruits. Are these the 15 mentioned reference here? Are they the
Yes, those will be the ones in the academy.
ones that the 14 that are in the okay.
That's a great question. That's a great question because I always highlighted that because go back to the previous slide. So really, what you need to do is back out those 15 from that 322 for officers on the ground today. Right?
It's been
Yeah.
307. Yeah.
I think that would be a little bit
Okay.
clearer.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
The other thing that I think might be helpful would be to, I don't know, you might have it in this presentation already, is injured on duty status, to really give us a more realistic assessment of how many officers we actually have.
Correct. We could provide that in future presentations.
I see you don't have any handouts this time, huh? On this, there's no handouts? Usually we got a handout. I didn't get any. It's okay. Just want to know. We'll get one later. Just wanted to know if I didn't receive one. There isn't any.
I think it is in the back of the packet. The last attachment.
On this back? Wow. Oh.
No, I think it's back in the stack. The last item on the stack.
Oh, way out of here. Okay, all right. Very
Okay.
good. I'm taking notes. Okay.
This next slide here shows a 5-year history of where we're at. What we really focus on, of course, is the net gain, is the bottom row there. So going back to 2013, we had more separations than we were hiring officers. So those numbers for 2013 and 2014 were not good numbers. In 2014, they started to really revamp the recruitment and hiring process, and we had a small net gain in 2015. 2016, we had a good year, the best year in recent history, with 43 hires. We did have 30 separations. This past year, 2017, we finished calculating the numbers, and we had 33 hires. We did have 26 separations, and again, if you look at that number 26, it's a little bit better than in the previous 3 years. And we're hoping that number continues to improve as our retention improves. So we netted 17 in 2017, and then we did add a goal for 2018 of 40. So that's what we're shooting for this year. And separated again, very close. We're projecting 25, which is very close to the 2017 number of 26. And we're hoping to net 15. That concludes my part of the presentation. At this point, what I'd like to do is introduce, again, Oscar Lazardi, Corporal Oscar Lazardi. Oscar has been with the department for 19 years. He's a lateral from Riverside. And Oscar has been a corporal and has worked in each bureau of the police department, including the admin bureau and training, field operations, and investigation. So we're real excited to have Oscar joining the hiring and recruitment program.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to put me in this position and award me the opportunity as your recruiting officer for the Santa Ana Police Department. I want to say that I'm very honored and I'm very proud to be a Santa Ana police officer, and I'm very excited to be in this position. Just like with all my other positions, but especially this one now, because I feel like everything that I've pretty much have learned and all the investment that has been taken upon me, I'm able to now as well continue to give back. So thank you for that. With that, what we've done is the last month now, 5 weeks now since I've been there, I had the opportunity to start looking, asking questions, and consider a lot of factors. So one of the things that we're looking at, or the issues of the overview, is internal and external factors. pretty much what is within our control and what's out of our control, and those are major considerations when considering implementing a recruitment program. Our neighboring agencies, as mentioned, a lot of them are competing for the same applicants, so we need to ensure that we consider all aspects, and that's what we're doing. So with that, being the full-time recruitment officer, I have worked on establishing a cadre. There has been already officers that have been working with the recruitment and with backgrounds. So what I'm doing is considering formalizing this cadre. We have 3 supervisors with 20 officers that have been selected to be a part of this ancillary duty to assist with this and to ensure consistency amongst the entire recruitment program. So with that, we have a focus. That focus that you see there are the 3 social media and marketing, boots on the ground, and then an outreach program. Real quickly, with the social media and the marketing, like with anything, we want to see how we're best marketing ourselves, and with that's what it comes down to. There's a lot of competition, so with that, the social media is a very important aspect of it. Along those lines, we do a lot of recruitment and events where we go, with uniformed officers, boots on the ground, attending these events. Researching what has worked for us, what is more efficient, more effective for us than in the past, and where we're going to go forward with these. And in addition, like with anything else, establishing relationships with our, not just our colleges, our police academies, our local businesses, but I believe it's important to have that one-on-one, now having a full-time recruitment officer to ensure that we have that consistency within these relationships, including Santa Ana College, their administration, justice division in all aspects. I mentioned the academies there because oftentimes what we've learned is that there's a lot of very good candidates that are sponsor themselves, but by the time we get to them, other agencies have already taken pretty much the cream of the crop within that academy. So having that relationship and being able to target and have get that information out firsthand, I think is very critical, along with everything else with our religious organizations and local businesses within the city. We're really focusing on also not just locals, but here within the city as well. We've had a lot of great success with applicants from homegrown within the city of Santa Ana, and we want to continue to reach out and market that. Considering all this, some of the research, a lot of the research that I've been doing, what I've learned a lot is that, 60% or so of law enforcement officers have been drawn by friends and families. So we can't, just not look at that. I think it's very important to consider the fact that the majority of us are in this line of work because of this referral by friends and family. So with that, what we're working at is I'm considering putting together an education piece so that all of our employees within the department, not just our swarm, but our non-swarm, get educated as to just the basic type of questioning so that everybody essentially becomes a recruiter within our organization, and then provide them with the recruitment material from attending, from roll calls and meetings, and having everybody, again, consistency is very important. So to ensure that the message and the information that we're providing is consistent, not just from me as the full-time recruiting officer, but from all levels within the organization and targeting these.
Corporal, if I can interrupt you for
Yes,
a
sir.
quick second. Question perhaps for Chief or City Manager. Have we ever considered providing some type of incentive program if 60% come from, internal or referrals, if for a hire for, a personnel member that would refer somebody, if that person gets, and maybe it's tiers if they apply or go through the process, and then if they ultimately, get, sworn in, an incentive.
So it has been part of our conversation. It's part of a list of recommendations that I'll be discussing with the city manager to then hopefully bring forward to the city council for consideration. Currently, because we're all really targeting the same few applicants that are out there, what you see in the lateral police officer world is incentives anywhere from $10,000 on the low end up to $25,000. That's for a hire, $25,000 incentive. In addition to that, there are incentives for referrals from folks that are currently part of the police department. My preference and recommendation will be that we lean there because as we've had conversations internally, no one knows the place better than our own people. And the idea is we're not going to recommend someone that you're going to put your life hands into. That is not someone you would want to work side by side with. So I think there can be a blend. We do want to provide some incentive as a recommendation for laterals because they're our quickest immediate deployment to the field. But I think rewarding and recognizing those that are here is certainly a sound recommendation and one that you will see hopefully in the very near future.
Thank you. And lastly, like with anything else, we want to track this performance. We want to know where we stand, how we're doing overall. So whether from monthly to annual reports, I want to be able to assess our recruitment strategy. That cadre of recruiting officers, I plan on meeting with them on a monthly basis. But like anything, we don't know what we don't know until we research it. And what I'm talking about is from the very early stages on, the recruitment phase, all the way to the very end. I think it's important to be able to go back and conduct almost a survey, if you will, for these officers that have gone through the process, that have just recently graduated from the academy, and sit down with them and ask, what made you choose us? Why did you choose to go to us? What was it about it? To be able to be as effective as possible, to take it on from the early stages and to be as efficient as possible. So in a nutshell, that's a quick overview. Like with anything else, new to it, so we're considering different approaches. Yes, sir.
Chief?
If I could just add just a couple of additional comments. First is, I think it's important to note that at least in nearly 30 years that I'm aware of, this is the first time that we assign and dedicate a full-time resource to recruitment. Full-time, that's a huge commitment on our part. We recognize that in trying to address 61 vacancies, there has to be an investment on the front side. We have absolute confidence in Oscar's abilities. He represents the organizations well. That's why he was selected. In addition to that, once upon a time, I did work human resources, and so I have some understanding of recruitment and the process and the efficiencies that are necessary. So I've asked questions. Really trying to get an understanding for what's in place today, not what I knew years ago. And so one of the questions I had was, when was the last time that we actually went into Santa Ana College? They offer some 12 core courses in the criminal justice degree program. I know this because I'm a product. And so we hadn't done that. So really getting back to some, as mentioned, local recruitment. If we have 60 vacancies, I contend that we should target that half of those come from this city. We have good folks that want to get into this industry. We want to create a pipeline from high school to explorer to cadet right into police work. And it doesn't have to be sworn. It could be one of the support roles. It could be CSI. It could be dispatch, records, you name it. So that's part of the larger vision here, but it does require investment. And so that's what we've done. Also asking some of the questions about the getting outside of the non-traditional recruitment efforts. The military bases are great. They come with a paramilitary perspective, obviously, and that's very much our police department, any police department. But when was the last time we actually visited, religious institutions and talked about the fact that we have all these vacancies here in this city? And offer that up and have a conversation, something that we have not done. So there's a lot of talent here in the city. I think we need to lean on that. And for anyone that's here or listening at home, please go to the website. I do feel like a used car salesman sometimes, but I'm looking for the best and brightest, just like we all are. So it's just part of a larger global perspective and approach here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. And wow, this looks like really, really good news, and the numbers are showing that we're making a difference now. And I've been on this committee for about a year now, and I'm very happy to see we're making progress because the name of the game we all know is results. One of the things that I did want to mention, just food for thought, when it comes to, Councilmember Benavides, do you have any? One of the things I wanted to bring up is I know how hard it is to find qualified people, and especially nowadays. And now we have the recreational marijuana that's out there. And that's going to be tough to find. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of folks with questions regarding cannabis use. So, kind of keep that in mind. This city is very, very busy. We have an average of 13,000 calls a month. That's an average of 433 calls for service a day. That breaks down to about 18 calls for service an hour. And you get one incident, that significant incident, and it ties everyone up, and all those calls get backed up. So we need people. We need people, and we need the best, because the city is very active, and that's who we want. Our families and our friends and our coworkers and all of us here, we deserve nothing but the best. And I'm very confident in our new chief here that we're going to make a lot of changes. They're going to have some really good recruiting. I'm very excited to have the corporal out here in the full-time recruiter status out there, and we picked somebody that's very, very qualified. So thank you, sir, for stepping out. Councilmember Benavides.
Thank you. I want to echo some of that. I think that there's a lot that we can take pride in here in the city of Santa Ana. All of us probably live somewhere else or work somewhere else, but there's something special about the city. It's people, it's culture, and it's staff, it's employees, and I would agree with you, Chief Valentin, that we have local talent, and over the years, as I've had opportunities to interact with different officers, whether it be out in neighborhood meetings, whether it be on ride-alongs, or whether it be in whatever capacity, as a resident, as a councilman, we have just quality individuals who are dedicated, and the ones that specifically stand out to me are the ones who say, if they graduated from Saddleback High School, or Santa Ana High School, or Century, or they went to Lathrop or Spurgeon, and this is home for them. And it's a number of them who continue to live in the city. A lot of them who still have family. They mom and dad live here, and so they have that vested interest. There's a certain deeper level of connection so I would agree with you, and I'm glad that there is that you're being very intentional about connecting. Also non-traditional. I would agree that there are a lot of people who, if they were made aware and see the opportunity, see that law enforcement can be for them, that they would step in. So I commend you for that, and then that commitment. I would absolutely agree that we can talk about a lot of ideas, but ultimately making that investment, saying this is significant enough so that we're going to dedicate somebody to this assignment full time. And I agree. I've had the opportunity to interface with Corporal Lizardi over the years. Now definitely represents the city quite well. Is very capable and a great spokesperson, and I think will do an effective job. I mentioned having been a member of the committee, this committee, for a number of years. I remember a few years back, as we were beginning to see just some of those on the horizon, some of the retirements, and we're looking at, okay, what are we going to do to be proactive? And I remember we discussed here in this room the idea of putting together a dedicated website and putting the Joint Santa Ana PD on all the police vehicles, and we brought a consultant in, and so to see that see that the results there, but to build upon that, and this level of commitment, I think will be fruitful. And I just want to encourage you to press on and go ahead, sound like a salesman. No, you're selling some great product, so do it. And that idea of having everybody be a recruiter within the city, I think it's a good thing. There's, again, a lot for us to take pride in, a lot for us to be able to sell and showcase. So good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Benavides. Chief, since you're on a roll, we're going to go with item number 7, the Orange County Needle Exchange Program and the homeless update.
Okay, the Orange County Needle Exchange Program, I do have an update. As the committee knows, and community staff, the Orange County Needle Exchange Program was authorized by the California Department of Public Health back in February of 16 for a 2-year period, actually February 11th, 2016 to 2018. And so after the 2-year period, they have to resubmit for their state permit. They did that in November of 2017. And really based on the collection of information, data, photographs, illustrations, crime reports, information reports, et cetera, incidents where we had a city employee and a county employee pricked by a needle, in speaking to officers and employees that have had to be impacted by what has occurred in our Civic Center, a 30-day notice of termination of the MOU with the OCNEP was put together, issued, and endorsed by our city manager on December 6th, 2017. I had part of the recertification process for OCNEP is to hear the state, to hear from the top law enforcement official. In this case, I provided input in a conference call with a whole host of representatives from the state, Office of AIDS, various MDs, representatives, and I provided input on what has been the impact here in our city, in our Civic Center. That conference call occurred on December 20th, 2017. And really the premise there, I think, is important, that the intent of this needle exchange program, or really any, is to provide for the public health, right? They're providing a resource to people. In this circumstance, and I asked the question in a variety of different ways, where can I see the research where this community, this civic center, was in fact the best place to facilitate this program out in the open. To this day, no state official or any medical professional was able to point me to data or literature where I can validate that. I don't have that. I don't know that it exists, quite frankly. And so I provided honest feedback to the state, shared with them what has been the impact, shared with them that, for example, when you have 300 needles that are found at a bus stop at First and Lacey, which is about, a good 1.5 miles, 2 miles east of our Civic Center area, that's a quality control issue. How is it that these needles are making out into the community? In addition to that, we have staff here, community members that will tell you, and probably yourselves included, that you really can't go too far in our Civic Center area and beyond without coming across the discarded needles, and more importantly, the uncapped used needles, which are a health risk as well. So the group, its intent was to address a public health need, but I think what was lacking was that true assessment of what the potential impact could be. I know that there was a separate facility that the group was looking at facilitating the program at a brick and mortar facility up on the off of 17th Street, I believe. And of course, community members, voice their concerns. They end up here in our Civic Center out in the open. It's no secret our Civic Center area is has a lot of issues that we're addressing, and so to overlay this resource with really a lack of control has been highly problematic. And I was very constructive, respectful in sharing that with the state. They took note and then provided us a summary of that call. We did make some revisions to that to those minutes because they did not entirely reflect my position. On January 3rd, as a result of this conference call with the state, I extended really a courtesy to meet with members of the OCNEP once again and to hear from them directly on whether they had really addressed or mitigated this adverse impact. Really no new information came from there other than they looked to seek a mobile dispersal platform in the future of needles in the exchange program. They even shared with me that they hope that they are recertified so that they can move into other communities, and they want to speak with other police chiefs. And so I am curious as to how that would go in terms of the input there. But it was again courteous exchange. Their attorneys from UCI School of Law that represent the group. Ms. Tamara Bogosian was there in the room with me at my request. And so that concluded. On the 3rd, on January 5th, I had a follow-up conference call with California Department of Public Health once again, shared with them what the outcome of my in-person meeting was. On January 5th, our city attorney's office advised the attorneys from OCNEP that as of midnight, January 5th, the MOU would be expired. They could no longer engage in this needle exchange program. The following day, on January 6th, they came to our Civic Center. Officers observed them once again distributing needles in our Civic Center. We have that documented. We have a recording of that as well. On January 12th is the deadline for the Department of Public Health to issue its final decision on recertification, January 12th. The state certification, again, expires February 11th. And that's really where we stand. And again, I think it's important to note that I was very clear that I understand what the intent of the program was, but for whatever reason and factors, the full assessment of what would potentially be the adverse impact wasn't completed. And then we are left to deal with the aftermath. One of the questions I posed to the group was, and their attorneys, is imagine if you had to consider the public safety factor, police and fire, because fire will tell you that they've had to increase their response as well, right? Not only in our Civic Center, but beyond. And so again, a well-intentioned program, but we've had to deal with I have a binder here with community members that have responded directly to me in letter form, email, phone calls. Some have come, I believe, here to this meeting, also the city council meeting, to express their displeasure with the program here in our city.
Quick question for you, Chief, or the Assistant City Attorney regarding this subject. So if the state were to issue another, grant them another year, they still need our permission to operate in the city. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
That's correct.
Thank you, Councilmember Villegas. At this time, there is a dispute between the parties. It's an informal dispute as to whether or not the state certification preempts the city's abilities to maintain and monitor who is operating what programs on city property. We will conduct that analysis for City Council. That's probably for a later date at a different venue. But at the same time, I will tell members of this committee that there are code of regulations that the OCNEP folks are required to comply with as it pertains to the needle exchange program. And one of the provisions under Title 17 is that they must comply with local regulations. So there's a differing opinion, I should say, between council for OCNEP and the city, and we're fully vetting that through the discussions with staff, and we will provide that input to the city council.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Councilmember Tinajero, who's joined us now.
Thank you, and my apologies for my tardiness. I had an issue at the school district that I had to tend to, but in the meantime, one of the things I had a brief discussion with our city manager regarding this issue, and I did speak with the folks that are a part of the needle exchange program. And, this council has always taken the leadership to try something new. Like you said, it was a well-intentioned program. One of the things that I did share with the group, I said, was your goal to expand to other cities? And they said, absolutely. I said, well, my view of the world is that something this controversial and this new, your organization should have made sure that you were at the highest. I mean, you just didn't meet all the requirements, but you went above meeting those requirements. I said, because if you've given out 10 needles and you've received 5 back and you're willing to give them another 10, we have issues. Where did those other 5 needles go? And I said, I'll tell you where they're going. They're going into some of our library books. They're going in our civic center, in the sewer system, on the sanitation district. I'm on the sanitation district, and I'm aware of that. And so I said, it doesn't make sense for us to continue using a organization that really is not well funded and doesn't have the manpower to assure that they're providing a good service. And like I said, it's a well-intentioned program, and I think I applaud our council because we've always been willing to go out and take the lead here in Orange County. But there is a time where you have to kind of reassess. And so I want to thank both our chief and our city manager and our leadership here in the city for two reasons. One, for taking that risk and trying to see if this could be something that is workable. But second, knowing that there was going to be controversy as we move towards eliminating it. And I think the reasons for it are very sound. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Councilmember Tinajero. Councilmember Benavides, any questions or comments?
My only question, so there were 3 dates that you provided, Acting Chief. There was a January 5th date, there was a January 12th date, and a February 11th date, right? So February 5th was...
February 5th midnight was the end of the MOU with the city at midnight.
I see. Okay.
And then the 12th is the deadline for the state to provide their final decision on the recertification. The initial period for operation was through February 11th.
Okay.
So they essentially have to make a determination 1 month prior, 1 month out.
Okay. So,
Go ahead.
so for staff, I don't know if city attorney or who might address this, if the state on the 12th does not issue recertification, does this program continue to operate? Can they continue to operate till February 11th, or do they immediately need to cease, or is that part of what's the question?
Current state certification is through February 11th.
Okay.
So they have a state license to operate this program until February 11th.
Technically, it's in dispute as to whether, since we didn't issue the extend our MOU, we would contend that they would need to cease, but they're continuing to operate under the assumption that they have the authorization from the state. Is that correct?
Yes, like I said, there's a bit of a dispute, again, informal. Parties have been discussing this issue as to whether or not the state certification gives them the right to continue through February 11th, despite the fact that the city has terminated the MOU.
One way or the other, we'll get word come January 11th, January 12th, or January 12th, 13th, as to whether the decision of the state.
Yes.
Right.
Well, maybe they can operate on state-owned property then. That's what
and if I could clarify my layman's interpretation, of course, city attorney is going to do their vetting, but my layman's interpretation is it's very similar, at least the way I see it, with liquor license. You know, the state will issue a license, but then in order to exercise that license in practice, you need a local approval through planning, and usually the results in some sort of a conditional use permit. And I think that version of a conditional use permit was the MOU that the city entered into with the OCNEP. That's the way I see it. Since then, the city has approved an ordinance to govern services in the Civic Center. And OCNEP, along with other providers that primarily service the homeless population, have submitted applications to operate. Right now, all of those applications are under review, and so no permits have been issued for anybody, period, including OCNEP. And that would be probably, if anything was to be authorized, it'd probably be through that mechanism.
Quick question. Any comment from OCFA regarding the issue on the needle exchange program, sir?
No, not that I'm aware of. I can speak to Chief Black, and he might have a little insight on it.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Okay, Chief, if you can continue with the other half of the number 7 regarding the homeless update.
Okay, I'll defer to Robert Cortez on that. Go ahead.
Good evening, council members. Quick update on the homelessness and our efforts here in the city. The current efforts, and this as a result of the adoption of the ordinance by the City Council back in October, came to the culmination of the enforcement efforts that were effective starting December 12th of 2017, which had a component of a power washing of the Civic Center area, which allowed for the removal of many of the items that were considered that were prohibited according to the ordinance. So those efforts are underway. There is a group of department representatives that comprise an interdepartmental team that have been focused solely on the Civic Center and the implementation of this ordinance. So far, that implementation has been going through. Under advisement and recommendations of our city manager, we are going to be expanding the scope of this interdepartmental team so we can start focusing on a citywide look at addressing homelessness, which is going to be including potentially looking at opportunities to extend what we're currently doing in the Civic Center to other areas in the city, such as parks, public right-of-ways. It's also going to be including an opportunity to look at other sites within the city of Santa Ana that we could potentially opt for a homeless shelter or other type of facility that could help facilitate some of the transitioning folks that we have here in the Civic Center area as well. Another update is our homeless manager. We have made a final selection. The individual has passed background checks. This individual is to start with the city of Santa Ana effective February 2nd, and this individual is going to be helping us a lot with the coordination efforts with the county, communication back out to the public, and also internally with the department. So any issues coming to the city, now we have a coordinated response as to how to address either the public or policy-related matters as it relates to homelessness.
Any questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Benavides.
I do have a follow-up question. There's been some media coverage regarding the, I believe it's January 22nd deadline on when the county is planning on clearing out the riverbed in Anaheim, Long Anaheim, and the potential impacts. I know we've received a recent communication from a business and property owner from the downtown that showed some surveillance footage or under security camera of an individual seemingly transient who set dumpster on fire and came close to catching the building. He expressed, which I've also heard from others in the area who are concerned about just the potential influx of individuals coming into our city, neighborhoods in our downtown. Have we, whether it be this interdepartmental team that you mentioned or otherwise, has there been conversation and preparation on the part of staff yet? Or if not, is that in the works? I'm hoping to be able to preempt and be ready for
Correct. So that's currently being discussed as part of the group. But in addition to that, the chief, along with our assistant city attorney, and I believe Commander Gominski and myself are having a meeting tomorrow with the county to have the discussion on this particular topic, gaining more insight and more information as to what does it really mean and what the county is really trying to achieve with this. Our understanding is that the county's attempt is to close the west side of a portion of the Santa Ana River Trail. They will continue to leave the east side portion, but we still don't know if that means that additional folks could potentially trickle into Santa Ana or surrounding communities. The cities that are adjacent to where the changes are happening in terms of the temporary closure are impacting the cities of Orange and Anaheim primarily. But these are still, we still have questions as a body, as a group, as to what are the potential impacts, because we do have shelters within the city of Santa Ana. Want to ensure that if there's any indication that folks may be bussed into Santa Ana for certain services, that we know offhand.
Well, I would, a couple of things that I would request of staff. One is I'm glad you're having the conversation with the county. But I'd request that we make the assumption that we will be impacted versus, the county, imagine will say, no, we've got it handled. It's okay. City of Santa Ana, it's not our intent for you to be impacted, and you're not going to be. But let's make the assumption that we are. How are we going to respond and be ready? And the other is to also look at, as part of a response, connecting with some of the shelter providers, so that again we have open lines of communication. Look at how we collectively and together are going to address address this, providing services, and at the same time not. At the end of the day, folks gather where they feel comfortable, and unfortunately, it's one of those things where if we make it too comfortable, then we will see that influx, and then the adverse impacts. We want to be humane, which I think we've been and continue to be, but at the same time not make it so that we're not ready to mitigate and to address, and then end up being seeing again the larger numbers and influx and then adverse effects. So having the open lines of communication, both county, but with the other service providers, and looking at how we're not a service provider, but having those line of communication, so that as part of our action, maybe as folks potentially come in, we know we have a plan set in place on diverting those folks or having those service providers come in to address and move people to where they can be serviced. So and I would just request an additional update to the full council after later in the month. And so
absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tinajero, any comment? All right, no comment from the council member. One of the things I just wanted to quickly address, and I concur with Councilmember Benavides regarding this, keeping an eye on this, because we get a lot of emails and phone calls and text messages and letters from people concerned about the homeless issue, and how it affects the downtown area and actually the whole city. As a matter of fact, I called the coroner's office this morning. For 2017, we had 43 transients die in the city of Santa Ana. So I thought the number was less, but I was surprised. And so that's for this year only. And we can't have these people coming here just to die. I mean, that's what happens to you if you're on the street. You don't get services. You live on the street. You're going to die on the street. Can't have that. So we do have to, what I like to call tough love, and get them services and move them along, because we can't have that. We have to make sure that we maintain order and safety for the residents of the city of Santa Ana, and this is one of those major issues that's taking place. It's affecting a lot of the business owners also. We don't want people leaving. We want people to stay, and people go to school here and do business here and visit here and enjoy life, especially the residents. So, because they're the ones that are doing the main concern, and it's true. Like one of the Mr. Marashi in the audience who was speaking earlier, these folks are riding their bikes out in the middle of the night, through all these neighborhoods and looking to see what they can steal. And I had someone the other day who reached me and said that there's this homeless guy sleeping in my driveway, and I can't get him out. And the police were too busy. No offense, Chief, but the police were too busy. I called 3 times. I had to get the fire department out here, and the fire department showed up, and they got rid of this guy. Get him out of the driveway, at least, is what I'm trying to say. So, that's tough. It's tough. We need help, and we need to get on point on this. If not, it's just going to get out of hand. So I'm glad I'm seeing that the county is putting their foot down a little bit, and they went out there and got the numbers out of those 1,000 people that they interviewed in the riverbed. 917 said that they didn't want any help, so that gives them everyone else they're helping, but everyone else, hey, that didn't want the help, and they got you on record, you got to go. And we need to take that kind of approach too here, because if not, we can't take the brunt of this. So thank you, Chief, and all the staff that spoke on item number 7, and we'll just continue with item number 8.
If I can just make
one more. Okay.
Make one last brief comment. Just want to recognize that we've talked about from the enforcement side, and appreciate the work being done there, but the fire authority as well. I just want to recognize, and acknowledge all of the work and the response, to service out there. I know calls go through the roof of people as people want a variety of different things, from mental illness to people not having a medical coverage, so everything ends up at an emergency, and you're getting called and pulled left and right, and I just wanted to publicly acknowledge, your leadership and service there, and the team that's out there working in tandem with the PD and other agencies. So, thanks.
I think we'll go ahead and continue with item number 8, the illegal cannabis enforcement. Go ahead, Candida.
Good evening, council members. I'm representing the cannabis enforcement team, but I do want you to recognize that this is a team, and it's been an interdisciplinary group. We have representatives from the city manager's office, the police department, the city attorney's office, and Alvaro and I from PBA. So this work has been completed by a group of people, really and I think we've been very successful at it because of that. As you know, on January 1st, we started selling adult use cannabis, and we now have approximately 16 uses that are operating. The good news about that is we have not found that we had any new reported or even identified through various sources that we have, such as the internet or the weed map, that there were any new uses that catered directly to adult use in Santa Ana. So that was something that I think we were surprised about and happy about, because that shows us that our enforcement efforts are being successful. And the approach that we've taken is it's tailored basically depending on the type of use that we think will be most successful, or type of approach that we think will be most successful. Typically, we start out with just issuing a cease and desist order. That's the first step or process that we go through. Then, if the business is not responsive to that, we look into other options, one of which is disconnection of the utilities. And in many cases, that's successful, and issuance of administrative fines. In many instances, that is successful, but in others, it's not. So at that point, we need to continue and either start issuing fines, which escalate as we issue additional fines over the times of noncompliance. And then we look at either this inspection and abatement process, or which we've been using. We've been going to the courts to get the warrants to go in and inspect the facilities and find out what they are doing. But what's been most successful for us just recently is a contract that we've entered in through funding through the city attorney's office with a service called Vacant Property Systems, and they provide what we call the Iron Man doors, which are these heavy steel metal doors that are actually bolted into the building, and they cover all the access points. So once we are authorized to take possession of this building, because what's been happening is we go in there, we disconnect the utilities, we board it up with our plywood, and they're in there 3 hours, maybe 4. They're back in there and they're selling. So this method has been very good. It also includes a system that has a motion detector in it, which can be an alarm system which can then connect to the police department facilities and notify them if they've been able to, as they did in one case, take a blowtorch and cut through the metal doors. But we have only had that happen in one instance. That's only happened in one instance. So but we've been very successful with the 5 that we have implemented this on, and it's sent a strong message out to the community of the people that are operating these illegal businesses that we are serious about what we're talking about. I believe the fines didn't work, the utilities didn't work, but this does seem to. We have gotten their attention, and we do feel like it's a successful program, and we continue to use it where we think it's effective, will be effective. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer
Thank you.
them.
Any of the council members have any questions or comments?
Question. So at this point, how many illegal or rogue shops do we estimate we have out there? Do we have a rough?
Approximately,
idea?
I think we have 15 remaining, approximately, but that's down from over 120.
Yeah, I recall. I remember those
Right.
days. So good work, good job on that. And it's good to hear also that after January 1, we didn't see a spike in those additional legal shops, which is what some of us feared. So yeah, you've sent a good message out there, and
Sure.
I thought it was your hard work, but maybe it's just knocking on wood. Alvaro is what takes care of it. So one thing, well, okay, so you're crossing fingers, haciendo chonguitos, knocking wood, whatever it is. It's working. The one thing I would want to make mention of, Mr. Marashi made mention earlier, which actually I think was a good point, kind of an FAQs as to the legal. These are legitimate businesses now in town, right? So to be able to provide information to the community, I think both print, maybe a page on our website, whether it be under planning or PD or link or both somewhere, so that it's easy, so that folks know, okay, this place is operating, and exactly what they recommended. I think Comlink made a very good point. Just so, what does this mean? What are the regulations? How are they being monitored? And that way, we also know if you're not one of these 16, 17 operators, so we find somebody who's in another address, we should definitely be reporting it and let folks know. Chances are we already know, but in case that we may not, it just will let the community know. One is the actions that we're taking, and two, those that are legal out there. So I would request that we put something like that together. That's my comment. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Benavides. Councilmember Tinajero.
Thank you. No, I think you all are doing a great job. My only question is, the 15 that are still around, it's like they're like little cockroaches. What's going on? Why can't we shut them down? I mean, there's one over by Standard, right off of Standard and First, right in that area.
It's gone.
Oh, it's gone now?
It's gone.
You know what? I'm glad you did that. See, I did that. I teed it up for you.
gone.
I just want to let you know. I teed it up for you. So that one's gone.
Walnut, yeah.
Good. And so, the question is people, you know what would be good, and this would be good for all of us, is once you shut these illegal dispensaries down, if you could send us a memo that says, hey, we just shut this one down, because that serves for us when the community asks us, hey, what about these illegal? Well, you know what? There was one on Standard, over by Standard, it just got shut down. So we're moving in that process.
Okay.
So that's something
Yeah.
that would be helpful. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. And yes, thank you for your hard work and dedication to addressing that issue. So since Councilmember Tinajero was not here.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just before we leave off, well, it's not related to legal cannabis. I just wanted to compliment staff. It was a team effort. I know PBA was in the lead. Candida and her team of planners, City Attorney's Office, our very own Robert Cortez, and others worked really hard to make sure that we had everything we needed to do done so that our dispensaries, medicinal dispensaries, were able to get their temporary license and for us to be operational. I thought we were going to have more cities, and I was really proud to see that we were among the very few who were actually operational on that day. We were receiving phone calls over the holidays. I know I was getting calls, and so I was really happy. I know Mr. Peter Katz sort of highlighted that. I just wanted to thank staff and let you know that everybody worked through the holidays to make sure that that happened, and I'm really happy that it turned out as smoothly, and it's been smooth ever since. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, City Manager Godinez. So since Councilmember Tinajero was not here, we did not go over items 1, 2, and 3, so if we can review the bylaws, or if you want to go ahead and make any changes or accept them, and, I need a motion for that on item number 2.
I'll make a motion to accept the bylaws.
Second.
All right, so that motion, can I, all in favor say aye?
Aye.
All right, okay, motion passes. Item number 2. And item number 3, review and approve the proposed meeting schedule.
So they provide us two options here, right? We have an option 1 and 2, which is the second Tuesday or the fourth Tuesday. And I don't know if either of you have a preference.
I typically would prefer the second Tuesday, but I'm not married to it.
I'm okay with the second Tuesday.
That'll work.
We're going to go ahead. Okay.
Sure, so then-
Okay, all in favor say aye.
I'll make a motion to approve. Or was there a motion? I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so that passes item number 3, and then we're going to go ahead and elect the chair. So open for discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to have Councilman Tinajero serve as chair and Councilman Villegas serve as vice chair.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will, so Councilmember Tinajero is the new chair, and I will be the vice chair. And I, again, want to thank all the staff for coming out today and for all your hard work, and the city manager's office, and everyone, the chief, the police department, the fire department, for everyone coming out and giving us the updates, and all your hard work on all these sensitive issues that have come across in this meeting today. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting.
If we can just I don't know if any other members of the committee have comments, but I did want to make a couple comments just to reference some of the comments that members of the community brought to our attention. The famous coyote picture with the picture of the coyote on the roof, and I would urge staff. It is a safety issue and concern. I don't know exactly how we would address it, whether it's specific to the city or county, or I don't know if there's another agency, a state agency, wildlife. I don't know who, but
It
anyway,
would be animal control. We'll reach out to
if we can look at addressing that and bringing some awareness and having it be kind of broader. Mr. Katz brought up a very good point with regard to, especially now that we have, and I do want to make reference from what the city manager mentioned. We did. It's ironic. I voted against Measure BB, man. So it's ironic that we got national attention here on January 1st. But you know what? We want to lead on, and if this is what we're getting attention for leading on, it's not necessarily that thing. Hopefully, there are other things that the city of Santa Ana will continue to lead on. But when there's articles in the LA Times, Register, making mention that people from LA are having to come out to Santa Ana, that's a pretty good thing. For Santa Ana to be ahead of LA. On something, and everything was done well, in order, no incidents reported, anything of that sort. So we did well, team did well, city did well, staff did well on that other piece with this growing economy that is at this point a cash economy. There is potential. I've heard of other cities that are looking at independent banks, and I would urge the staff and city manager. One of the first items that we talked about was economic development. Again, not necessarily the type of industry or business that I was thinking might lend opportunity for economic development and business creation and our bank, but if that's what we have in our hand, let's take advantage of an opportunity. So let's look at that. Then I believe the Artesia Pilar comment is from Ward 5. So I don't know if this is this whole issue of noise ordinance, or we're looking at that, maybe something that we want to discuss a bit more, but
Sorry to interrupt,
Councilmember
Councilmember Benavides. Did you want any of those items on as future items on the next agenda?
You know, I I know that the bank idea, I believe there it was addressed at the committee, the economic developments. I think that would be the appropriate one to take that on. There would be just an update with regard to. Thank you for the question. Just an update on the whole dispensary mapping. That would be helpful as an update for future. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Villegas. What Councilmember Benavides is saying is something that I know we chuckled a little bit on it, but he's absolutely correct. Let us not be our own obstacles in searching for new ways to bring in revenue to the city. I know that the unions are looking to create a what do you call it, a credit union, so that their banks that they have unionized, or their shops that they have unionized, can then have a place where they can bring their, use credit cards and so forth. So I think we're better organized than they are, and we can be more efficient in really taking a look at this. So I'm glad that you brought it up, because it once again puts another piece of that jigsaw puzzle that's starting to make a clearer picture of what this should look like for other cities, and we're the lead on that. Second is that sometimes we get caught up in our jobs, but there's also a interpersonal and a human side to all of our lives. I mean, we all have lives outside of this job. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you and congratulate Jorge, who's here and just found out he is expecting his second child. So, well, his wife is, but, we'll light a candle for you or something, because two is different than one, so. But anyhow, I just want to congratulate him. And with that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember or Chair Tinajero. And real quick, if we could talk about the citizens' complaint regarding the music at the next meeting. We're going to have someone bring that up. I mean, I think if you have to sign the ticket, whoever's going to complain has to sign the citation. Am I right? So I think the public might be a little in the dark about that, but we'll talk about it at the next meeting. And with that, I adjourn the meeting.